Hey, what's up, bootstrappers? This is Ryan Nickel coming at you with another day in the life of being a bootstrap real estate investor. Going to be a little bit jiggly here as I'm driving down the road. Got up early this morning, drove on down to Sacramento, which is about an hour away from where I live. Went to go look at one property, ended up looking at two properties with this guy, and then looked at two other ones. And because he didn't show up on time, and so I went and just drove around the neighborhood, looked at some pre-foreclosures that were on Zillow, and saw that one was there, and then I saw an old vacant house. I went down and checked it out. Anyway, crazy stuff, man. This crazy stories this morning. I don't know where to start, but I want to talk about polarity responders because on my way back, I had a phone call with another investor. And the funny thing is we've both run into the same house. We live in a small town, so same house, same seller, and he's just, doesn't want to move, but he's going to end up losing his house, either to the tax auction because he's behind in his taxes. I think this is the 5th year. He's not paying his mortgage. It already went into default, and then he filed the rescission. He paid that off. But anyway, in talking to her, I shared some of my frustrations that I experienced with her, and it was just painful. I remember the very first conversation I had with the gentleman. I was on my way home from a date with my wife, and I decided to call the guy, not thinking that he would answer, and he did. And I ended up talking to him for about 7.5 hours that night. This was about 7:30 at night, and I went all the way to 2 o'clock in the morning. It was ridiculous. My wife was so mad at me the next day that I spent so long with this guy. I was mad at me for spending so long with this guy. I'm like, what's wrong with me? I'm trying to and this is way back in my evolution. This was almost 1.5 years ago. Hey, Ashley, this is exactly what we were just talking about, with a little bit more elaboration. So when I first started to get into real estate, I thought my understanding of what sales was for me to be able to talk to a person and to win them over, win friends, and whatever that book is by Dale Carnegie, which I've never read, How to Influence Friends and Win People Over, or something like that. I'm probably just slaughtering that right now. How to Win Friends and Influence People. There you go. It's on my shelf to read. I have 4 or 5 copies of it. I have an older original copy and then 20 other copies, but I've never read. So anyway, maybe I should pick it up. But anyway, my whole philosophy was how to win friends and influence people was to be their friend, to talk about them. So I'm talking about this guy. He's lonely. He's all by himself. And he has a lot of mental issues going on as well. He's a hoarder, which is definitely a disorder, amongst other things. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to be his friend. I'm going to talk to him about his life, where he's come from, all these things. And I'm spending, my life with this guy. And honestly, I kid you not, I took my phone and I'm like this. I'm holding it out whatever. It's far away from me. And he's talking for a good 15 minutes. And then I'll come back, yeah. And then I'll just do something else. I'll washing the dishes, cleaning up, after the babysitter or whatnot. And I'm like, yeah, that's interesting, yeah. And I didn't care about the guy, and that was the first part. I didn't care about him at all. All I wanted to do was to close his house, to get some money on it. I was hungry, I was desperate, I needed money bad. So I was caring more about profits than I was about people in this particular situation. And I didn't care, but I wanted to quote unquote be his friend. And at the end of the conversation, I finally realized, I'm you know what, this is not going anywhere. I'm pissed off that I've spent so much time with this guy, and I'm not getting any kind of pull with him, any kind of influence, any kind of leverage at all. So I'm you know what, I don't want to buy your house. I'm not interested. Why? It's a really good house. You should want to buy this house. I'm oh, damn it, all my training, this guy's a polarity responder. And for those of you who don't know what a polarity responder is, if you think of a magnet here, you have, a north and the south pole. You have these different poles, positive and negative side. And so if you put two positives together, they clash and they push back. If you put a positive and a negative, they attract. And so what happens is, two negatives and two positives, and they'll repel each other. And every time that I'm, trying to say something positive to this guy, he's repelling me. So we call him a polarity responder. So I'm I need to get the response that I want. I need to go negative on him, and he'll go positive, and we'll connect. Other than that, he's just going to go ahead and push away every single time. So if I go, yeah, this is a really nice house, I want to buy it, he'd be like, well, it's not for sale. I'm like, dang it. I'm like, well, and I start to talk about all the problems that are wrong with it and stuff like that. He's like, no, that's not a problem. No, this is fine. This is that. And so what I finally ended up doing, I'm like, yeah, you know what? It sounds like you got a really good situation going on here. You live here solo. You're all by yourself. You got a lot of stuff here. It looks like you're pretty comfortable here in your house, and you wouldn't want to sell this, would you? because you're comfortable and you got a lot, you don't need the money. And this guy, by the way, is broke. He lives off of, at least what he tells me is, a cup of milk and like one yogurt a day, just nothing. And so those are the conversations that I would use with him. And all of a sudden he was like, of course I need the money. Have you looked at my place? I can't afford anything. I can't afford to eat out. And I mean, I realized, I'm like, oh, this is how I get to this guy. And I had totally forgot that. And so, we have become friends. I haven't been over there to visit him in a while. I plan on going there tomorrow. But I've had him at my house a couple of times for dinner. We had him over for Thanksgiving. And the way that I got him over for Thanksgiving was I didn't go like, hey, you want to come to Thanksgiving dinner, don't you? And because his response has been in the past when I've invited him over, it's been like, oh, no, look at me. I haven't washed my hair. How could I go out in public like this? I'm a disgrace, all these things. And so I approached him. I'm like, hey, my wife thought it would be a really good idea to invite you over for Thanksgiving. She thought you'd want to get out and socialize with other people and stuff like that. And then I played good cop, bad cop with him. I'm like, oh, but I thought that like you're comfortable here in your house. You choose to live this way. You don't like to go out in public unless you absolutely have to because you like to be alone. You enjoy the solace and the company of your thoughts. He's like, well, I haven't been out in a while, and a good home cooked meal is something that we every once in a while he shakes his head when he gets excited. He's like, you got to have a good home cooked meal, and I'm like, that's right. Go ahead and get dressed. Let's go ahead and go. And so that's how I used him to get I don't say used him, but I used this approach to get him to go the directions that I wanted. Whether I buy this house or not, I really don't care. I'm not in a place of desperation like I was at one point where I just I needed this house. If I can help him, I will. If I can't, then that's okay. I know there are investors, like the one that I spoke with, and I guess there's one other one in the wings as well that are knocking on his door. There's opportunity for him, but I'm not going to give up and just say, hey, I'm not going to go over there anymore because there's some kind of friendship there. Plus, I have to deliver him a message from code enforcement. We have a mutual friend in code enforcement who has been riding him for a long, long time, and he needs to know that there are a few things he has to clean up on his property in order to get them off his back. But anyway, I digress. There are people out there that you're talking to, and if you realize that in the first couple of seconds that you're just not, or in a couple of minutes that you're just not going the direction where you need to go, flip it on them. Take the opposite approach. You have to be comfortable enough in yourself and with the person you're talking to, not just necessarily comfortable with them, but with you. You have to be comfortable. Hey, if this person, doesn't take my flip and he just says, I don't want to sell my house, boom, be okay with it. Move on to the next deal. But I almost guarantee it that you'll find somebody to be like, what? That works on them. You go negative on them, and they'll come back and they'll go positive on you. And I've used that time and time again. That has become second nature. Like I said, this was almost about 2 years ago when I had this first conversation with this guy. And after that, haven't had a problem. And but I also had some training on it as well. I hired a coach, specifically a phone coach, a guy to help me because I was doing all my calls on the over the phone. And I hired Claude Diamond, and I mentored with him for a little bit more than a year, and he really helped step up my game. In fact, I got a little timer on my desk that is a 1, a 3, and a 5-minute timer. So I go 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. At the end of 5 minutes, if I haven't gotten to a price conversation with the person, the conversation's over. And I learned that from him. He's like, you gotta get to the price as soon as possible because, that's the conversation that's going to determine whether or not you're going to move forward or not. Why delay that out an hour, 2 hours? Who are you kidding, man? Get to that conversation as fast as possible and realize that it's not going to be a deal. Move on. And so the way that I've gotten there is by immediately going negative with people, because what I have found is 9 times out of 10, most people are going to go negative, or they're going to respond to your negative in a positive instead of you trying to find a positive that's going to convert with the positive. That's just the way that we are wired these days with all the negative in the news, press, and everything else, that they latch on to that negativity, and they always are looking for, at least, my mind is I'm always looking for the opposite. I want to prove people wrong. People want to be right. They want to be right, and they're not looking for someone to tell them what to do. We don't want to be forced. We want to be told what to do, and we want to be right. And so by going negative, you're allowing for them to, 1, choose the positive, and 2, to be right, and it's their choice, their decision. And so I do that with people when I call them up on the phone. And one of the things I say is like, hey, I'm calling about your house on 123 Main Street. You wouldn't be interested in selling that, would you? And or that house isn't for sale. Or another thing that I like to say too is, and this isn't necessarily a question, is it is a statement. I'll walk into a house and I'll look at it, and this only works if you're talking to the owner, and the owner's there with you. And I'll walk into the house, and I learned this. What is his name? I learned this from He's an old school South Florida. His name is I'm going to say Joey Buttafuoco, but that's not his name. I think that's the Amy Fisher dude. But it's something like that. Anyway, who's calling me right now? Anyway, so he's got interrupted with a stupid phone call. But anyway, so he'd walk into a house and he'd be like, who'd want to sell a house like this? And then they'll immediately start to tell you all the things that are wrong with it, why they want to sell the house. And I love that line. I absolutely love it. I'll walk into a place and I'll look around, regardless of how it looks. It could be trashed or it could be, immaculate. I walk in like, man, who'd want to sell a place like this? And in having that conversation with them, they'll immediately start to tell me all the things, that's wrong with it and why they're trying to sell the property. And it's hilarious. I absolutely love that line. And, take it, use it, practice it. Let me know if it works. And I got to slow down here as I try to pass this truck. And there we go. Gotta love recording these videos while I'm driving. I'm a champ. So, anyway, this is been another day in the life. Hopefully you can take some of these ideas with you on polarity responders, people, and some of these phrases that I have used over time that do work with me. All right, I'm Ryan Nickel. I'm a bootstrap real estate investor. I started from scratch. I'm now financially free with all the investments that we have been able to do. In fact, in the last 6 months, I've gone from food stamps to having all of my expenses paid and then some just from passive real estate. I love it. I love this life. I love real estate. It is the best thing that has ever happened to me, and it is the last great opportunity for people to get rich in this world. You're not going to invent a tech company. You're not going to have some kind of widget that you're going to invent that's going to be awesome and stuff like that. Maybe you are. I just want to say it, but the chances are, that's probably not going to happen. But real estate, it's the last great, equalizer out there. You can get into real estate, and literally, you're just one deal away from changing your entire financial future. My very first deal, it took me 3 weeks, and I got $20,000, and I realized, crap, in 3 weeks, I've made a third of what I was making prior to when I lost my job and I got fired in 3 weeks. And I was like, this is amazing. If I can do this in 3 weeks, what can I do for the rest of the year? Well, after that, it took me about 6.5 months to figure out how to get my next deal, but I'd already tasted what it was like, and I wasn't going to give up because I'd tasted it. And that's what I want for you. All right, I'm Ryan Nickel, and hope you all have a great day. Oh, you're right. Yeah, 7 hours, Ashley. Oh, total waste of my life, but it was all good. All right, talk to you later.